Welcome to the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply. Before we introduce one another, just to remind you that as you appear before the Committee of Parliament, you enjoy the immunities and privileges of Parliament using Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, in that whatever you say to the committee may not be used against you in any court of law. The flip side of it is that if you mislead the committee, sanctions do apply. So enjoy the full immunities and the privileges so that we get what you have for us. With that in mind, I would invite you to introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and members. We thank you for inviting us to appear before your committee. We are extremely humbled and honored. My name is Mukula Makasa. I'm the Acting Director General. And with me, to my right, I have our...
They can introduce themselves.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. My name's Precious Goma. I'm the Board Secretary and Legal Counsel for the ZDA.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm Innocent Melu. I'm the Acting Director for Policy and Planning, ZDA. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. My name is Teresa Chipuluchula. I'm the Acting Director for Investment at the ZDA. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Mununga Kunda, in the Clerk's Office.
I'm Cosmas Bulaya from the Office of the Clerk of National Assembly.
Honorable members who are participating in the virtual, you can introduce yourselves.
I'm Sialuvalo Giftis, and I'm a member of Parliament.
Next.
Good morning, witnesses, and good morning, Chair.
Honorable Katuta, go ahead. Honorable Katuta, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair. Can you?
Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Chair, and good morning, witnesses. I'm Reverend Given Katuta Mwilwa, a member of Parliament for Chiengilopla Province on the board of GRC in Zambia. You're welcome.
Honorable Kasanda.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Honorable Chushika Sadla, Member of Parliament for Chisamba and Vice Chairperson for this committee. Thank you.
So, Honorable Zimba. Honorable Kavamba. Honorable Hefo. Okay, colleagues here.
Good morning, ZDA. My name is Peter Daka, Member of Parliament from Sanzala in Petaoke and Rosangazi districts of Eastern Province, member to this committee. Thank you. You're welcome.
Good morning, ZDA. My name is Chinga Mutu. I represent Karab Central in Western Province and a member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Sakarima Douglas, MP for Chirondo and the chairperson of this committee. We apologize for keeping you for a long time outside. We had a few issues with the last witness. So I'm hoping that you yourself can quickly run us through your in summary form so that we have ample time for members to ask. So I invite you to present your submission.
Thank you, Chair. Without belaboring and wasting much of your time, we'll quickly delve into our paper, assuming that you have studied our memorandum. Chair, the paper we submit before your committee is looking at the participation of local contractors in the Zambian construction industry. Chair, we cannot overemphasize the importance of good quality infrastructure in determining the course of industrialization, structural transformation, and economic development in any country, which is well established. The stock of physical infrastructure broadly determines the efficiency with which producers and consumers interact in clearing markets, thus significantly shaping the fortunes of an economy. A range of installations qualify as construction works. These include, first and foremost, transportation systems such as roads, bridges, walkways, rail, airports, and ports. Secondly, electric energy production and distribution systems such as electric grids. Thirdly, water and sanitation systems that provide a supply of clean water to allow for water resource management and support sanitation through waste disposal subsystems. And fourthly, housing infrastructure, including accommodation or buildings for residential and commercial purposes, that also includes, the retail, wholesale, and warehousing facilities, storage facilities, including silos for agricultural purposes, office buildings, and extractive industry and manufacturing infrastructure or factories, which are specialized types of housing infrastructure. And fifthly, Chair, telecommunication installations like phone, television, or internet work installations, satellites, among others. Chair, I also want to bring to your attention that public good nature of most construction works, most efforts to install or build physical assets tend to be public sector driven and state funded. Granted that contemporary infrastructure projects in Africa generally financed through loan and grant term financing from multilateral, bilateral, and regional development cooperation partners or through PPP, mainly in the energy sector. However, I also need to inform you, Chair, that private good nature of some physical infrastructure, particularly residential and commercial accommodation buildings in the private domain, must not be forgotten. In our country, both the private residential housing and the commercial office and retail outlet subsectors have experienced tremendous growth in the past 20 years, which has also contributed in creating demand in manufacturing, in agriculture, and other sectors in both urban and rural areas. Therefore, the goal of this paper that we are submitting this morning, Chair, is to comment on the participation of local contractors in the construction sectors guided by your committee. Our mandate, Chair, is to promote trade and investment and to also, stimulate establishment, growth, and development of micro, small, and medium enterprises, including smallholder farmers and cooperatives. We also recognize, Chair, within our mandate that infrastructure is an important enabler to achieving economic growth and development because it facilitates integration into the regional, actually even the domestic, regional, and global economy, and provides vital connectivity for the transfer of goods and services. It steers trade and also facilitates investment and creates employment opportunities. Chair, due to the aforementioned investment promotion and enterprise development functions respectively, the agency implements the national industrial policy. Specific interventions aimed at the development of the construction sector include promotion of infrastructure, development through the provision of investment incentives, among others. We also undertake policy advocacy, research, business information and market intelligence, and we also facilitate access to finance for local enterprises. We also, facilitate public-private liaison services. We also, facilitate development and regulation of multi-facility economic zones. We also facilitate joint venture partnerships, business incubation, and capacity building for local enterprises. Arising from the aforementioned, Chair, I would like to inform you that the agency is well positioned to contribute to economic development and diversification by facilitating and promoting growth of the construction sector and participation of Zambian enterprises within it, in line with the aspirations of the 7th National Development Plan. Chair, at this juncture, I would like to take you to responding to the specific questions that you had requested us to provide you feedback. The first one is 3.1, which is the adequacy of the policy and legal framework governing the participation of local contractors. The policy framework itself, Chair, governing the participation of local enterprises in the economy is the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act of number 9 of 2006, which aims to ensure equity, ownership, and control of the means of production by citizens. Further, in addition to the National Local Content Strategy, which was issued in 2018, this is a framework that aims to foster business linkages in growth sectors as well as promote linkages between MSMEs and large enterprises. Other notable policies that promote citizens' participation in the economy include the National Youth Policy and also the National Agricultural Policy. Notwithstanding the National Industrial Policy, Chair, the local content strategy that promotes local participation in the economy, there is need for a robust standalone empowerment policy that will guide the strategies and measures that will be used to enhance local participation in priority sectors such as construction. As far as the institutional framework is concerned, Chair, the overarching governance body for infrastructure development and construction services in the country is the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure Development, which was created in September 2016 to superintend the designing, procuring, and construction of all public infrastructure. It is responsible for various functions, including architecture, aviation infrastructure, building and construction, industry policy, education infrastructure, health infrastructure, maritime infrastructure, national housing policy, including land transport-related infrastructure, among others. The six key statutory bodies which fall under the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure includes the Association for Consulting Engineers, the Engineering Institute of Zambia, the National Council for Construction, the National Housing Authority, the Quantity Surveyors Registration Board, the Road Development Agency, and the Zambia Institute of Architects. Chair, as far as the regulatory framework is concerned, the apex regulatory institution in the construction industry is the National Council for Construction, which was established under the Act number 13 of 2003. As far as the legal framework is concerned, the participation of Zambian enterprises in the economy, the main legislation is the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act of number 9 of 2006, with an objective of promoting economic empowerment of targeted citizens. Now, Chair, the National Council for Construction, Act number 13 of 2003, is also responsible for the promotion, development, training, and regulation of the construction industry in the country. I would also like to inform you, Chair, that the Engineering Institute of Zambia, Act number 17 of 2010, Section 19, subsection number 2, C, consulting engineers are required to be members of the ACEEZ and to also register with the Engineering Registration Board in the College of Consulting Engineers. Other pieces of legislation and board agreements that directly or indirectly influence the performance of the construction sector in Zambia includes the ZDA Act number 11 of 2006, the Public Procurement Act number 12 of 2008, the Anti-Corruption Act, the Penal Code Act, the Public Interest Disclosure Protection of Whistleblowers Act number 4 of 2010, the Competition and Fair Trading Act Cap 417, Mines and Minerals Development Act number 7 of 2015, the Petroleum Exploration and Development Act number 10 of 2008, the Private Public Partnership Act number 14 of 2009, the Standards Act Cap 416, the Road Development Agency Act number 12 of 2002, the Zambia Public Procurement Act number 14 of 2009, the international agreements including the United Nations Convention Act Against Corruption, the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, and the COMESA and procurement directives. Chair, architects and quantity surveyors are also key providers in the construction sector. Further, I would like to share with you, Chair, that practicing architects are registered with the Zambia Institute of Architects, which is founded on the Zambia Institute Architects Act Cap 442 of 1995. On the other hand, Chair, practitioner quantity surveyors are registered with and regulated by the QSRB under the Quantity Surveyors Act Cap 438 number 37 of 1995. In addition to what we have stated above, Chair, the construction sector draws attention of cross-cutting oversight and watchdog institutions, including the Parliamentary Oversight and the Auditor General's Office, and the non-governmental organizations such as TIZ, the Transparency International, the Zambiland Alliance, among others. Chair, overall, the legal framework is inadequate in promoting the growth of local enterprises, largely due to the protracted operationalization of the local content strategy. It is therefore worth noting that during the 2021 budget speech to Parliament, the Honorable Minister of Finance stated that government would operationalize the strategy through the amendment of the Zambia Public Procurement Act. This will ensure that at least 35% of inputs in growth sectors such as construction are locally procured. Chair, this will be very significant and very fundamental in enhancing and accelerating participation of our people in the economy. Chair, allow me to take you to the level of participation of local contractors. I'll quickly just browse through this. According to the ZDA database, since the year 2007, we've had 250 enterprises in the construction sector that have registered with the agency, of which 20 have been Zambian enterprises. This represents only 8% participation rate of Zambians in the sector. In terms of the value of pledged investment in the sector, a total of 6.4 billion has been recorded since the year 2007, of which only $77.2 million has been pledged by Zambian firms. This represents only 1.2% share, which is extremely low, of capital in the sector belonging to Zambian firms. Chair, since 2007, a total pledged employment of 44,355 was recorded in the sector, of which only 3,337 is attributed to Zambian enterprises. This represents a rate of only 7.5% of jobs in the sector contributed by Zambian enterprises. Our database, Chair, shows that the main FDI investors in the sector are China, which contributes 1.2 billion, Tanzania $101 million, and Mauritius 69 million. Chinese investors have the highest recorded pledged employment in the sector, with about 6,400 jobs since 2007. Similarly, a study conducted by the Zambia Institute for Policy and Analysis Research and the National Council for Construction showed that only 3.5% of all Zambian enterprises in the sector are in grade ones and 2 respectively. This statistic projects a low participation level of Zambian enterprises in the top 2 grades of contractors, with the vast majority of enterprises in the 2 grades originating from China. This is exemplified by the comparison of award values on the Link 8000 and development project by the nationality of the contractors. The construction analysis report of 2014, Chair, showed that 77.3% of the award value went to Chinese contractors, with only 15.1% to South African contractors, 5.1% to Indian, and only 2.6% to Zambian contractors, Chair. This is very, very significant, Chair, and is a source of concern for government and even development institutions such as ZDA, RDA, National Council for Construction, and obviously to you, the legislators and other policymakers. Participation levels in the 4 lower grades of contractors comprise exclusively of Zambian enterprises, as projected in the table that we shared with you, Chair, which is on page 8 of 19 of our submission. Chair, the availability and adequacy of training programs for contractors. The construction sector in Zambia, Chair, suffers from a serious shortage of skills at all levels. It is estimated that the country requires about 17,000 new construction workers each year. However, very few school leavers are given the opportunity to gain the necessary skills to pursue this avenue due to inadequate access to skills development institutions. Chair, this is where the beef for intervention lies for both legislators, policymakers, government, and even ourselves as a development implementing institution. We need to allocate significant resources to this area, because this is where even we can channel our youths to create employment opportunities. Therefore, Chair, I hasten to say that about 60% of the trade schools are either in the hands of churches, the private sector, or community-based organizations. Outside government, churches are the main provider of construction skills training. Learning institutions such as Build It, Thorn Park Construction Training Institute, the National Council for Construction School, trade schools under TVETA, and others offer the following courses, among others: brick and block laying, rough carpentry, painting, and plastering. So due to the aforementioned, Chair, with regards to the availability of training programs, it is our shared view, Chair, that the programs are readily available, especially in urban areas, though not widely accessible due to financial and proximity challenges. In particular, accessibility of training programs in rural areas is limited since private training institutions are mostly located in high-density urban areas. Chair, other measures that government has put in place to empower local contractors. Chair, government has put in place industrial yards, multi-facility economic zones and industrial parks. We've got the cooperatives development, which is very fundamental in terms of aggregating all potential contractors, which falls under the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Development. There's also access to finance. Government has established the Citizens Economic Empowerment Fund to provide finance to MSMEs in various in viable projects in target sectors. In addition, government through the Zambia Development Agency facilitates access to finance for MSMEs from the domestic financial sector, government as well as international multilateral institutions such as SADC and COMESA, and also the African Development Bank and also DBZ. Furthermore, government established the Zambia Credit Guarantee Scheme, which is in the process of being operationalized to enhance access of credit to MSMEs and contractors in particular as well. Investment promotion. Government through ZDA promotes investment in priority sectors such as construction through the provision of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives to qualifying investors. Recently, Chair, during the 2021 budget speech to Parliament, the Minister of Finance stated that government planned to amend the ZDA Act number 11 of 2006 by reducing the investment threshold from $500,000 to $100,000 for Zambian enterprises. This will enhance the participation of Zambian enterprises within the economy, Chair. Chair, there's also the issue of joint venture partnerships. The Zambia Development Agency facilitates joint venture partnerships between local enterprises and large enterprises, both domestic and foreign. Capacity building, Chair. Chair, capacity building in entrepreneurship and enterprise development is provided by the agency to build capacity and resilience among local enterprises, as well as provide business information and market intelligence that may be useful in growing their business enterprises. TVETA also provides tertiary education framework for the development of skills that are needed for Zambians working in the construction sector. Other government agencies that provide targeted capacity building to enterprises in the sector include the CEC, the Zambia Bureau of Standards, the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, PACRA, and also the Zambia Revenue Authority, where tax compliance is concerned, and the Zambia Environmental Management Agency, and the Kaizen Institute. Chair, at this juncture, I would like to draw you to 3.5, the effectiveness of the strategies meant to support local contractors. Chair, here, I would like to zero in on the cooperatives development, because this is one of the most significant interventions. The cooperatives development model provides the opportunity for MSMEs to pool resources and expertise in order to become more competitive within economic sectors. However, progress towards implementation of this model has mainly been in the agricultural sector. I therefore want to implore even your committee, government, policymakers, and even other development actors and even cooperating partners to invest resources in championing cooperative development in the construction industry. Because, Chair, this year alone, the government, through the Ministry of Finance, allocated resources from the national budget at 8.4% of the budget, which is close to 10 billion. And that's very significant. And having stated that the bulk of those resources are being tapped by foreign contractors, I think there is cause for us to mobilize our people through cooperatives to see how we can enhance their participation. Therefore, business linkages based on this model among local contractors will be very profound. Chair, I also want to draw your attention to access to finance. Chair, access to finance is the largest challenge faced by local contractors. This has been exacerbated by the high bank lending rates averaging 27%, limited collateral, weak business proposal writing skills, and other stringent requirements by financial institutions. The protracted operationalization of the Zambia Credit Guarantee Scheme, Chair, has also weakened the ability of our contractors to access credit, which is very fundamental to implement contracts which they secure. Investment promotion, Chair, as highlighted below, in their current form, the incentives provided by the ZDA Act may not be effective in facilitating participation of local contractors in the sector. It is expected that the amendment of the ZDA Act by the House, as announced by the Minister of Finance, will promote participation of Zambian enterprises within the economy. Therefore, Chair, I would like to lobby this committee to effectively engage your colleagues within the House that when this bill comes before the floor, Chair and members of the committee, you should take keen interest in order to accelerate amendment of this bill, because it will help our contractors and other sectors of the economy to effectively participate in the economy. Chair, joint venture partnerships. The protracted operationalization of the local content strategy has provided little incentive for foreign contractors to partner with Zambian firms. Chair, just by operationalizing this, by issuing an SI, which I think the Ministry of Commerce and even the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure are working very closely, it will go a long way in accelerating participation of Zambian contractors. Chair, I now want to move you to capacity building. As highlighted above, Chair, the construction sector has inadequate numbers of skilled professionals that have been trained in construction. Therefore, I just wanted to notify you, Chair, that training facilities are mostly found in urban centers, with the majority of those located in rural areas belonging to faith-based organizations and non-government organizations. Due to the aforementioned, Chair, accessibility to training facilities is largely inadequate. Therefore, I would like to implore your committee to influence the House to come up with measures that would make sure that we can invest in more training institutions, particularly in rural areas, where we can empower more youth to participate in the construction sector. Chair, the challenges, I want to at this point address the challenges faced by local contractors. One of the major constraints faced by local contractors is inadequate access to finance. And so there will be need for both government and the implementing institutions, agencies, including the House itself, to look at exploring innovative and cost-effective and affordable sources of capital, which our contractors can deploy in implementing and executing contracts so that they can become competitive on the marketplace. There's also limited, consistent public contracts awarded to domestic contractors. Chair, this is where the local content strategy is very relevant. And so I'd like to implore the House and even other relevant players and stakeholders to look at how we can expand access to the construction sector cake, so that our local contractors can also access these opportunities. This is very fundamental, Chair. There's also the issue of the business environment, which is not conducive for local contractors, Chair. This is very important. We have to constantly be interrogating and exploring, easing how to do business and how to make sure that local contractors have access to business opportunities. Then there's also the lack of specialized domestic labor force, resulting in poor quality of work. Another challenge, Chair, is the management and supervisory roles of large contractors, which are filled by international staff, hindering career progression and reducing the supervisory training opportunities for local workers. And then the other limitation, Chair, or challenge is construction. Construction MSMEs operate with low profit margins. Chair, this is an issue of enhancing skills of our contractors to help them how to manage and cut costs. The other challenge, Chair, is also the unpaid domestic arrears. Delays in government payments for goods and services supplied affects business operations. I guess, Chair, these are some of the issues that you discuss even within the House with your colleagues from the Ministry of Finance. In the 2021 budget, 2.7 billion was allocated for the dismantling of domestic arrears. This amount is only 11.3% of the total domestic arrears, amounting to over 24 billion owed by government. Chair, I also want to bring your attention to the inadequate legal framework promoting contraction of Zambian enterprises, the protracted operationalization of the local content strategy that requires that 35% inputs are locally sourced has delayed. Therefore, the participation of Zambian enterprises has also been slowed down. This is very fundamental, Chair, and I want to draw your attention, Chair and members, to this particular one. This, when operationalized, will become a game changer. But obviously, there's some other strategic interventions that we need to put in place, such as enhancing capacity and then also access to the financing. And then there's also the least but not the last, Chair, in terms of challenges, inadequate investment incentives for local contractors. Currently, the ZDA Act number 11 of 2006 only provides for accelerated depreciation and duty-free import of capital equipment. In comparison, countries such as Botswana, Chair, additionally provide for more competitive incentives such as 5 to 10 years tax break, holidays for qualifying investors. Chair, lastly, the announcement made by the Minister of Finance during his 2021 budget speech detailing government plans to amend the ZDA Act by changing the investment threshold from $500,000 to $100,000 will help to increase the participation of Zambian contractors within the sector. Chair, I want to move you to the way forward in improving the participation of local contractors. Enhancing transparency in the sector by strengthening the legal framework requiring procuring entities in construction as well as in other sectors to proactively release necessary or material project information into the public domain. Chair, this is very fundamental because most of our contractors actually even fail to participate due to limited access to information. Information is power. If we avail them information, they'll be able to engage, to plan, and effectively participate in the construction sector. Chair, the construction authorities, the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure Development, and the National Council for Construction should work towards strengthening, streamlining, and simplifying the procurement and contracting rules and systems, particularly the processes that may lead to information and participation asymmetrics, reduced independence of regulators, risks of rent seeking, cost escalation, and corruption. Chair, the authorities should also establish a contract and bundling policy and law, particularly for large contracts, Chair, so that no single large contractor is awarded contracts to execute, say, more than 60% of the works as monopoly service suppliers. The unbundling of contracts will create room for smaller contractors to participate in some aspects of the unbundled infrastructure projects. Chair, here I just want to give an example. For example, if you're building a big airport like the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, in hindsight, what we should have done is we should have segmented the works. We could not award the entire contract to one big contractor, because even them to subcontract, there's no law that would compel them to do that. So the packaging of the tenders itself should be segmented, and that way we'll have enhanced and cured some of the challenges of accessing business opportunities to our people. Chair, the authorities should consider establishing training and capacity building programs that will improve sharing and application of information and knowledge to enhance competency, thus reducing information asymmetrics, particularly among local contractors. Chair, here an example I'll give you. 40 years ago, China, under the leadership of its leader then, Chairman Deng Xiaoping, made a very radical policy direction, which has brought China where it is today. They created a training and contracting policy which empowered Chinese to partner with foreign entities. They started with 80 to 20, and gradually over a period of 20 to 30 years, reduced it significantly, which has resulted in even exporting Chinese contractors to other parts of the world. Today, we have a monopoly of Chinese contractors in Zambia, which were born from that same policy, which Deng Xiaoping had put in place. Chair, the private sector is already supporting training and local skills development through contributions to the statutorily determined skills development levy, SDL, at a rate of 0.5% on gross remunerations payable by employers with effect from January 1, 2017 under the skills development levy. Act number 46 of 2016. Chair, the authorities should also review and expedite the operationalization of the local content strategy and partial policies such as the 20% subcontracting policy, which I was just sharing with you what was done in China. That was aimed at establishing a robust and all-inclusive local content policy and implementation framework for construction services. With regards to bilateral partners such as China that have a significant contractor presence in Zambia, during contract negotiations, Chair, government should ensure that access to Chinese and other foreign government development assistance to Zambia through Chinese and other foreign contractors should be conditional on the contractors demonstrating a willingness and ability, Chair, to build the capacity of local contractors through skills, technology, and operating capital transfer partnerships. Chair, this is very significant. And I would like to challenge you as a committee that even within the House, you need to take it to the line ministry, which is the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure, to try to build consensus and also build a policy measure which would practically implement this, and also bring implementing institutions such as the Roads Development Agency, the National Council for Construction, the Zambia Development Agency, even a financial institution such as DBZ and CEC to the table to come up with an operational framework that will drive this agenda, because this is what will transform and turn around the construction sector and enhance participation of our local contractors. Chair, the 2021 budget allocated 10 billion kwacha to infrastructure development, representing 8.4% of the total budget. This comprised of health infrastructure, 1.7 billion, education infrastructure, 1.2 billion, road infrastructure, 6.2 billion, aviation infrastructure, 0.57 billion. Therefore, in order to track progress made in enhancing the participation of local contractors in the construction sector, it would be beneficial for government to clearly state the annual budgets, the minimum amount of resources that will be allocated to local contractors from the total infrastructure development allocation. This percentage may be guided by the local content strategy. Chair, the last but not the least point and the way forward is to expedite the dismantling of the domestic arrears. This is very fundamental, Chair, because it will also ease the cash flow and operations of the local contractors, and will also smoothen the various domestic supply chains and circulation of the liquidity within our economy. This will provide the needed liquidity to local enterprises, thus enabling them to achieve stability and expansion through reinvestment. In conclusion, Chair, the participation of Zambian enterprises within the priority sectors of development has been the focus of recent government policy interventions. However, these measures have not yielded the desired results due to inadequate legal frameworks, limited access to finance, and weak capacity among local contractors. Notwithstanding the aforementioned, Chair, recent government plans to amend key pieces of legislation provide an opportunity for enhanced participation of local contractors within the economy. Chair, the agency wants to thank you for inviting us and for giving us significant attention. We thank you and yield back.
Thank you very much, ZDA. Colleagues, we only have limited time with the ZDA. Quickly on point as you ask questions. Hello, is there anybody? Colleagues, are you on? Honorable Mioto.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. On the way forward, I'm looking at 3.73, 3.7.3, and 3.7.6. 0.6 here, the emphasis seems to be on 20% subcontraction Then 3.7.3 is on unbundling a contract. I want to seek the difference here on 20% and this unbundling. Is this unbundling working in favor of increasing the 20% or the 20% to remain as it is, but the contract to be in segments? Are they the same or different? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Chair, unbundling, the reason why we are proposing unbundling, Chair, is some of these projects are so huge to the extent that our local contractors will be at the mercy of these foreign contractors. But if, for instance, you take an airport like the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, or I think there's a highway that is supposed to be constructed between Lusaka and Ndola. If you break it down in segments, it means you will have even large contractors focusing on various segments, and the 20% can still remain and be used to subcontract to local contractors. But what it means, Chair, if we unbundle these projects, it means that even local contractors will have capacity to also compete for these same unbundled projects. Because when the project is very big, the financing requirements are so huge to the extent that there are very few local contractors that can compete and afford and even secure the necessary guarantees. I thank you, Chair, and yield back.
Any other questions out there? Wow. Nothing. Okay, no, thank you very much, ZDA, for appearing before our committee. I think you have submitted quite an elaborative piece of paper, and I think, especially on unbundling, I think that's a new word now we have come across, which is making sense actually to all this thing about local contractors participating in the development agenda of our country. So we wish you well, and thank you very much. So, but before you leave, let me withdraw the immunities that are conferred upon yourself. Whatever you do outside there. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Chair and committee. We beg to move. Thank you.